Well, hello out there. I wanted to kind of end this journey, if you will, with a few parting comments. But before I do, I'd like to say that as you noticed, I was using a leg mount for the transmitter on this bird in the field. I did that because I knew I was only going to be flying it for a couple of days, and so I didn't want to go through the hassle of putting on a tail mount or waste a backpack on the bird. So I just put it on the leg. But however you would probably want to use a leg mount or a backpack. Although I'll be honest, I don't know. I've never used a leg mount on a Cooper, but I was trying to think of why I haven't. I guess it's because they're small bird, and when they're chasing something, there's the possibility of the antenna getting wrapped around whatever and perhaps injuring the bird's leg. I think that's probably the reason why I haven't done it, and I don't know of anyone else that has either. So again, you probably want to use a leg mount or the backpack. Now I'll tell you that with the tail mount and the backpack. I can tell you that with the tail mount, I have not had all good luck. There were a few birds that lost a deck feather with the tail mount. And here again, with the antenna getting wrapped around something and pulling the deck feather out. So that's a consideration. Now I will say that Louis Alexander of L&L Electronics has come out with a transmitter specifically designed for the tail. It has a very low profile, short antenna, and so this is something you might want to consider if you want to go that route. But I think probably the best one nowadays is the backpack, and because the transmitters are small now, and plus you can put them on, leave them on, and just turn it off and on with the wand, and so that makes it nice in terms of the Coopers, because they of course don't like being messed with. So I might, I would consider using a backpack. Okay, enough about that. I want to conclude by addressing a question that was presented to me a couple of years ago by Harry McElroy, my good friend Harry McElroy. Harry and I have been in disagreement about one aspect of the Passage Coopers, and that is who is best qualified to fly these birds. Harry seems to think that these birds are best flown by the exceptional falconer. And I disagree. And I have disagreed with him on this. And because I'm not an exceptional falconer at all, and I've been successful with it. So I know from where I speak. But a couple of years ago, in our last conversation on this topic, Harry said to me, "Okay, Bill, if it's so easy to train and to fly these Coopers, these Passage Coopers, why don't we see more of them?" And that pretty much stopped me in my tracks, because as you all may know, you don't see many people flying Passage Coopers. If you go to a NAFA meet, you may see one, possibly two, but no more. And so it was a legitimate question. It was a question that I didn't have an answer to until last season, when I took on a Passage Coopers. This is the first Coopers that I had flown in at least 15 years. and I did it to make this video, and it didn't work out because I didn't have the right camera, but as I say, I trained it and flew it for a while, and in the process of training and flying this bird, it refreshed my memory, if you will, about these little hawks. And I've concluded that the reason why we don't see more Passage Cooper's hawks being flown by falconers is simply because, it's not because, first of all, that they are hard to train, because they are not. They absolutely are not. And it's not because they are difficult to hawk, because they're game little birds. They like to chase things, and so it's nothing like that. What the reason why is because people just don't want to put up with the bullshit, I guess, is the bluntest and frankest way I guess I could put it. They just don't. Because, well, it's not difficult to train them, it's not difficult to hawk them. It can be problematic managing these birds. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And to keep them from destroying themselves, which can be a real challenge, particularly for someone who's flying their very first Coopers. And so there's a lot of, and then there's dealing with the nature of the beast itself. They're, I don't think temperamental is the right word, but they're certainly very sensitive and just go off. Sometimes I think long before they even think about it, they just explode. They're just that way. They're nervous, I guess, in the service. And so a lot of people just don't want to put up with that. They just don't. You'll get falconers who, with all the best intentions, want to fly Coopers. They've never flown one before, but they want to try it. And then they run up against the nature of the beast, and more often than not, end up releasing the bird and calling it quits. So, that's a real consideration, I think, in deciding to fly one of these birds. Whether or not you want to put up with that sort of stuff. I remember having a conversation with Tom Colson. It was many years ago. We were talking about the Passage Cooper's hawk. And Tom had flown Passage Cooper's hawk, so he knew from where he was speaking. And I remember him saying to me, Bill, I just can't understand why people would want to fly a Passage Cooper's when they can fly a Harris's hawk. And it's hard to argue with that logic, because because basically what Tom was saying was that it's so much easier to fly the Harris's hawk, and you can have more fun doing it. And yeah, I guess that's what we're striving for here, is to have fun with these birds. And so you can't blame people for saying the hell with it and moving on. And I see this even with falconers that have flown, been successful with a number of these birds. Eventually they move on, and it's probably for that very reason. They go to a bird that's not as demanding, and have more fun as a result. So that's something you need to keep in mind, I think, before you get a Passage Cooper's, that while it's not difficult to get them, to train them or get them to catch things, you're always kind of put in a position where you're always, you know, there's a lot of mental gymnastics that you're having to go through, I guess is the best way to put it. And you're always a little bit on edge because here again, the nature of the beast. So you need to take that into consideration, because if you don't, then I think that you'll be disappointed along the way. Well, let's see. I guess that's all I have to say on the topic. I want to thank those of you who have made your way through all these video streams. You deserve a certificate of completion because I know that it took some time. But hopefully there were little tidbits of information, if nothing else, that will be helpful to some of you. That's the whole reason why I did this. So that being said, best to you, and I'll see you downwind.